The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
If you had 10:08 on your starting time, your estimated starting time for the show, you win. I don't know what you win, but you win.
Sadly, I'm sure some people did.
Oh, I mean, to be honest, like, my OCD, it's like, okay, if it's 10:03, we haven't started, like, you guys ready? 10:05.
It's got to be on it.
We should have just waited till 10:10 to make
Should've.
it sound like we start on these blocks of 10,
Yeah,
5,
that's what it should have
15.
been.
Maybe next time. Nice going, Casey. Casey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Just to clarify, second worst team.
Sure,
The
yeah,
Browns
the
are not the
Browns-
worst
Go
team.
ahead and hang
Browns
your
are
hat on.
Browns are the second worst team. I was basically right.
We're all about detail on this show.
Yeah,
Second worst. Just get it right. Just to clarify.
where Casey was right.
Almost.
Almost.
I just need Lamar to win that MVP, and then we're looking pretty in
Yeah,
this
we're-
office.
yeah.
We're looking
for 5
really
for 5.
pretty
Yeah.
if Lamar can win that MVP.
Oh, my God.
But, guys, good morning. How are we? Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, off and rolling here on a Thursday. Casey, good morning. Elliot, how are we?
I'm okay. I'm spectacular. Bearcats coming off a big win. Gives me a little energy.
Dominant.
First time I've seen a win from one of my teams in a while, so I'm ready. Dominant. I wouldn't say they won. They won by 6 against the team that sucks and didn't have their 2 best players.
So not a big win.
Oh, no,
to
it was,
recap.
it was a conference win.
It was a win.
The house that Dion built.
I've seen a lot of losses, so this win was a good
Do
change
you
of pace.
feel proven wrong?
No, but I think that if that's what it takes for this team to be good, for me to be the centerpiece of, their motivation, then that's what it takes, and I'm going to be happy to be a part of it.
Oh, I mean, Wes Miller, he's probably – I would like to know where Elliot is right now, I think is the exact quote from Wes Miller in the postgame.
Listen, he loves the people that stick with him, but even more so, he loves the people that don't like him. And he's going to prove him wrong.
Ding, 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 ding. There you go. Jacob, but this is your Friday.
It is. It is
For
my
a long
Friday.
extended weekend.
So we're going to have to really wring out the towel on college football talk today.
We're waving the towel. The terrible towels. We're waving.
We're
them.
ready to rock and roll.
We'll get to headlines coming up in just a moment. I hear this a lot, Buckeye fans. I'm a Buckeye fan. Jacob's a Buckeye fan. It's the most obnoxious fan base in college football. We've all agreed, yes. Buckeye fans being a little too confident heading into this matchup with Notre Dame. We'll get to that coming up here shortly. By the way, if you head to Chatterbox on X and participate in the X poll right there, again, are Buckeye fans being too confident heading into the national championship on Monday night against Notre Dame? I think the option is yes. No surprise. And then, of course, no, Ohio State should win are your options. We'll take a look at those results coming up here in a moment. Brian Kelly, he had a lot to say about who he's pulling for in this national championship game. His answer might surprise you, or will it? Buy or sell, and we'll talk about the Bengals, off-season officially in full swing, at least for them. We keep talking about all the needs that they have on defense, the offensive line. What are you going to do with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase? Not if you'll pay him, but how soon will you pay him? There's another need that the Bengals need to address, and we'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. But let's send it to our guy, Elliot, as we kick off the show with Elliot's Headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's Headlines.
I didn't want to bring the whistle today and then be out tomorrow and then leave you guys wanting it so bad. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Makes a lot of sense. Bearcats, they take down Colorado 68-62 on the road. Simas Lukosius led Cincinnati scorers with 16. Dylan Mitchell went 5 for 7 on free throws. The team as a whole shot 76%, and it was absolutely the reason why the Bearcats won last night. So they do matter. They do matter. And the Bearcats shot well when they needed to last night. So good for them. Big win, big conference win, the first conference win. And hopefully they get another one on Saturday against Arizona State. Moving on. 17th ranked Purdue, they beat Washington 69-58. 6th ranked Tennessee, they take care of Georgia, 23rd ranked Georgia 74-56. 56. West Virginia, they got destroyed by 10th-ranked Houston, 70-54. And 9th-ranked Kansas, they fell to 2nd-ranked Iowa State, 74-57, a blowout. Another
Iowa
blowout.
State's really good.
Very good. They're very, very, very good. George Mason, they went to Dayton and walked away with a 67-59 win. Dayton now 1-3 in the
Congratulations,
conference.
Skinner.
I mean, just no surprise here whatsoever. I mean, look, it's easy to get up to play the North Carolinas and the Iowa States. It's easy to get up to play the Marquettes when they have a number in front of their name. But for whatever reason, look, and some are saying, too, by the way, that the rumors of the Miami job opening up, Anthony Grant's name being one of those names rumored to be in line to take that job, it's kind of not a coincidence that the second that those rumors started circulating and the Flyers' struggles kind of collide a little bit. I don't know if that's the reason or not, but I've never been the biggest Anthony Grant fan. He wins, he recruits real well, but doesn't win the games that truly matter. And I'm so tired of hearing all the talk about Dayton needs to get to the Big East. You can't even dominate the A-10. Get out of here with that garbage. But back to Elliot's headlines.
Speaking of the A-10, this was a fun one. UMass hung on to beat Fordham 120-118. Did you guys hear about this?
No.
120-118 in triple overtime. UMass shot 57 free throws. Fordham shot 65 free throws. Rasul Diggins had a program best 46 points for UMass in their win. The game went 3 hours and 45 minutes. 79 fouls were called. 9 players fouled out of the game, which is tied for the most ever in an NCAA Division I basketball game.
How many free throws did you say they shot?
Well, it was, what's 57 plus 65?
A lot of them. Over 100.
57 plus 65.
So I want to know how long that game was, too.
122.
I just said 3 hours, 45 minutes.
Oh, my fault. My apologies. Sorry. I was trying to do the math in my head. When
3 hours and 45 minutes. The game
That's
lasted
crazy.
3 hours and 45 minutes.
So
If UC shot 110 free throws, how many do you think they'd make?
10%.
So I also want to know who the officials are for that game, because
That's a good point.
They really felt like doing their job. They really felt like doing their job last night, if that's the case. Unreal. So you said triple overtime. Huh?
Triple overtime.
No desire to go to bed, get home.
That's kind of the craziest part for me. It's like, at some point we got to call it, guys. We're talking about Fordham basketball. But no disrespect, obviously. Fordham, the only team in the A-10 without a conference win now. 79 fouls, 9 players fouling out. Whew. Moving on. NFL, Deontay Johnson, he's back with the Baltimore Ravens. Depending on the contract he signs in free agency, it could result in a compensatory pick for the Ravens. I imagine that's why they're doing that?
Yeah, he can't play with them in the playoffs. He won't even be a Raven until the league year ends. It would be the first day after the league year, but this does give them the ability to get that comp pick if he signs elsewhere. So
Does he get a ring?
Yeah, he will. Not for this, but he would get a ring from his previous stint in Baltimore because he played the regular season game.
I see. NFL has said there will be an increased law enforcement presence at the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Obviously, following the tragedy that happened there not too long ago. Moving to the NHL, Connor McDavid, now second in career points for Edmonton, only behind Wayne Gretzky. Oilers win last night against the Wild 5-3.
Found out he's 28 the other day. That's insane. I feel like he came in the league at 18. Feels like just yesterday. I mean, it's crazy. He's been in the league for a decade now.
Absolutely insane. What if he goes? What if he gets to 40? I mean, he's going to break every record.
Yeah.
NBA. I wasn't going to mention an NBA score from last night. Jacob threw this one at me. 126-67. The Clippers beat the Nets. The Clippers beat the Nets 126.
Just your standard professional sporting event with a 60-point win.
Did they not have players? They had to have not had players.
Again, I don't know the details, but with a score this bad, I don't care how many injuries you had.
Yeah.
You shouldn't lose by 60. You're professionals.
I mean, to be fair, there might have been a different reason why I guess the Clippers won on the road. Was it at home? Was it at home or on the road?
Again,
Doesn't matter.
You're
who cares.
asking questions.
Doesn't matter who cares.
Actually, the biggest surprise from that game is that Kawhi Leonard actually played.
Yeah, he did. He did. Interesting nugget. When Clippers opponents shoot free throws facing the wall being the group of fans that pay to rattle opponents at the free throw line, when opponents are shooting free throws there, the collective free throw percentage amongst all their opponents would rank second to last in the NBA.
Wow.
So the wall is making quite a bit of difference.
Effective.
How about that? How about
I've always
that?
been a fan of the wall.
I love the wall. I thought the wall was cool.
I also love the wall.
You gonna tell them about it
Oh,
on
yeah.
Monday?
Sure am.
Golf. Liv, they finalized a deal with Fox Sports. So Liv is moving up in the world. No longer on YouTube or wherever they were. It's
The
now
CW.
The CW. It's going to be now with Fox Sports.
That seems positive.
Yeah.
Didn't they merge like a year ago?
I'm not.
And just nothing has happened since?
I thought they did, and then I guess it never got signed. I honest to God, I don't even know.
See, without Scheffler getting arrested and Liv, we don't talk golf.
That's
so,
true.
Like,
fair.
Liv was good for golf.
No, we can talk TGL.
Well, did you watch that the other night?
Sure did.
I forgot all about that. I'm scrolling through. I'm like, oh, that's Tiger Woods. Oh, he has a club in his hand. Oh, he's golfing. Oh, they're inside. What the hell am I watching?
Yeah,
it was like a weird little thing.
It looks
that was
like a
happening
lot.
in my mind.
It looks like a lot going on. Haven't tuned in, but I don't know how the ratings have been, but I've seen a lot of clips and stuff tweeted. So either they're just pumping it a ton or people do care.
That's perfect for him because he doesn't have to. I mean, in all
Doesn't have to
seriousness,
walk.
doesn't have to walk.
Yeah.
So if this is a way that he gets TV time and it's golf and you get to see him with the club in his hand, I think that's a win. I mean, I sat there and watched it for quite some time trying to process what the hell I was technically watching, but it was different and it felt pretty cool. But that's in LA, right? Like they built this thing
It's in Florida.
Or Florida?
Yeah, it's in
Okay, so
Florida.
they built it specifically for this.
Tiger and Rory built it, I believe.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That was neat. But what it means big picture, I don't know. But back to
Maybe
LA's
PGA
headlines.
and Liv just both go under, and it's just all TGL.
That would be very funny.
Golf courses just cease to exist, and
That
it's
would
just
be-
simulators forever.
That would be very funny. It would be very funny. Those are your headlines.
Did you see this one? This is an interesting one. So LeBron James' business partner, Maverick Carter, is reportedly leading a group of investors aiming to raise $5 billion. Anyone have $5 billion? Anyone?
Sadly, just short.
So they're looking to raise $5 billion to establish an international basketball league to rival the NBA.
How about that?
Good luck.
I
like
mean,
that.
look, it's not a surprise. The NBA is as down as it has been in quite some time. So I think they smell blood in the water. But so you're going to start a rivaling league to the NBA and pull the players that killed the NBA to your league to help your league. This screams LeBron off to the side. I have nothing to do with this, but I'll let my business partner do it. Do it because my kids aren't good enough to play in the NBA, and then I can go play in this league and actually play with my kids, and everyone gets paid a lot of money. I don't know. That's kind of a joke, but at the same time, I don't know what to make of this. Like, why would you even consider trying to come up with something to rival the NBA? Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, none of the NFL rivals have ever really worked, except for a little bit. I guess the first instance of the XFL did decently well, but I mean, even that fizzled out. So
Did they play last year?
No major, UFL.
Yikes.
No
There you
major
go. And there you
competitors have worked for the major sports leagues. It's just not feasible because you can't get the good players, and that's what it comes down to. If you're going to watch amateur level sports, you watch college. If you want to watch professional sports, you watch the NBA and the NFL and the NHL and all that stuff. So I'm never a huge fan of these competitors, just in the sense of I'm probably never going to watch it.
It's just you want to watch the best of the best.
It's good in theory.
Yeah, it's great in theory. I just don't. I mean, it's when would anybody tune in? It's
Like the thought process of having football in the spring, all in. Never once have I watched the XFL.
Never.
Well, think if you're LeBron James. And by the way, it's LeBron James' business partner, Maverick Carter. So LeBron James technically is not involved in this because he's currently playing. But let's be clear. You know, in that pursuit of MJ and the greatness in the GOAT debate, right? Like, MJ owned a team. LeBron's going to own a league. Like, that's how you won up Michael Jordan.
That's pretty good.
You owned an NBA team. I'm going to own a league, even though LeBron's owned the league for the last 2 decades anyway. So I don't get this, especially because you were trying to do everything you can to raise $5 billion. Are there actually going to be investors out there that truly listen to this pitch and say, money well spent? I don't think so. I don't think so. But off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Justin Kinner, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett, Casey McAllister in the producer chair. And we're all having a good time here on this Thursday, your Friday.
My Friday. The only other bit of news that came out yesterday, the coaches for the All-American and Senior Bowl games were announced in college. And the only reason that matters is because the quarterbacks that are going to go at the top of this draft are playing in those games. So usually the staffs that are associated with said quarterbacks usually tend to trend that way. And in the East-West Shrine Bowl game, where Sugar Sanders will be playing, the Giants are coaching the defense, and the Tennessee offensive staff is the position coaches on the offense. So pick 1 and pick 3 represented there. And then in the Senior Bowl, Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator, and then the Browns special teams coach will be coaching the 2 teams. So Jalen Milroe, one of the seniors, represented there quarterback-wise, and a bunch of other guys, obviously, that'll be going at the top of the draft. So something to keep an eye on there as the draft season continues to progress.
I hate this draft. I hate this draft so much. Of all the drafts to have the number 2 pick, why this one?
If you had the number 2 pick in this draft and you had actual Deshaun Watson, you'd be in a great spot.
Yeah, because if you're in this spot because he was injured now,
Right,
blah, blah, blah.
and he was good.
But, I mean, you're going to get the guy from Penn State.
I would genuinely lose sleep.
Take the dislike.
Sleep at night if we had to play Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett in the same game.
I was going to say, take the dislike for the Browns away. Quick conversation. Browns number 2, not taking a quarterback. What do you do?
It's either Abdul Carter or Mason Graham. If you think you have Myles Garrett long term, I think you could talk yourself into Mason Graham, and you have an interior dominant guy and an exterior dominant guy. But if you go Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, you probably have the best edge rushing duo in the league.
You go Abdul Carter, and if Abdul Carter looks the part, then you entertain the idea of trading Myles Garrett. But what you're saying, too, is where you extend Myles Garrett,
Yeah.
now you have that 1-2 punch in the middle. Like I said, hey, take your hater cap off for a second if you can, and Jacob talks, and there's Elliot over there, just quiet as a mouse. All good. We'll get to more of that coming up later on in the show. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Buckeye fans, are Buckeye fans being a little too obnoxious and confident heading into their showdown with the Fighting Irish, with Notre Dame in the national championship game on Monday night? We'll take a look at the results of our X poll. Go check it out at Chatterbox Sports on X right now. Are Buckeye fans too confident heading into the matchup with Notre Dame on Monday night in the national championship game? We'll take a look at those results, and we'll discuss ourselves. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Ohio State, Notre Dame, the national championship game on Monday night. And, of course, we're all jacked. Well, a couple of us are excited about the national championship game. Of course, our team's in it. Ohio State looking to win. Ryan Day is looking to win his first national championship, of course. But I know earlier in the week we were kind of talking about it. Elliot, said it wasn't that crazy that Notre Dame can make a game of this. A lot of Buckeye fans, though, you can't overlook Notre Dame, because what are you overlooking them to? This is the last game of the season. But are Buckeye fans being a little too confident heading into this matchup with Notre Dame on Monday night in the national championship game? We put a poll on X on Chatterbox Sports. Go check it out. Are Ohio State fans being overly confident heading into the national title game versus Notre Dame on Monday night? And right now, according to at least the recent update I have, 56% of the vote says yes, no surprise. No surprise that Buckeye fans are being overly confident heading in to the national championship game on Monday night. What happened?
Yeah, I feel like with what we've seen over the last 3 rounds, why wouldn't Buckeye fans be overconfident? Ohio State, this is the hardest playoff path any team will ever have. They're going to do away with the byes for these conference champions like Boise State and Arizona State. So going through Tennessee in the first round, undefeated number 1 Oregon in the second round, and then a true home game in the semifinals for Texas. This is the hardest path any team's going to have. And Ohio State, I mean, even the Texas game where I at least personally feel like Ohio State missed a lot of opportunities, at least offensively, and then defensively, obviously Texas controlled the ball a little bit. Ohio State with the long fumble return. They won by 2 scores. They controlled the whole game. And I don't know what could possibly lead to really a close game in this one. I think Notre Dame against Ohio State is a great matchup for Ohio State. Notre Dame's injuries, obviously you never root for teams to get injured. I'd love to play a full-strength Notre Dame. I'd be just as confident. But all these injuries certainly play into how confident I am going into this one. They're without their two best D linemen, and then their two starting offensive linemen are out. And Ohio State's pass rush has been playing the best they've played in 4 years with JTT and Jack Sawyer, and the offensive line's coming together since the injuries. So I think Ohio State fans are about as confident as they should be.
As long as Howard doesn't have the Michigan game repeated, they will win the game. They will win the game.
I guess the confidence comes from what's the outlier in 15 games? Is it that Michigan game, or is it the other 13?
Yeah,
I'm pretty confident in saying it's that Michigan game.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, people bring up the Michigan game and say, well, this is why you can't be overly confident. You know, they're an 8-point favorite. They were, a 3-possession favorite against Michigan, and everyone was super overconfident then. And I'm also here to tell you, if you go back, they were a 3-possession favorite over Michigan, and I still sat in the chair throughout the week saying, I'm actually not worried that they're going to lose to Michigan, but I thought it was going to be an ugly game. And it was ugly with an ugly result. At the end of the day, I don't fear Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is look, every year we do this with Notre Dame. Every year they are the Dallas Cowboys of college football. They haven't won anything in decades. And then when they start rolling a bit, people think this is their year, and then they'll remind you that, oh, yeah, well, the cute storyline. Look, Notre Dame, more times than not, is always the team that's getting beat up in the national media, local media, this, that, and the other. But right now, they're kind of viewed as the good guys, as the underdogs, as the team that everyone's rooting for, because the Buckeyes have been billed as this New York Yankees, LA Dodgers type situation where they bought this roster, which, newsflash, every college athletics team out there is bought. I mean, even your local small teams, whether it's college basketball or whatever, they're all bought too. All the players are getting paid, and you're paying them as much as what your resources will allow you to do. And as we found out a few weeks ago, Ohio State actually did not even spend the most on their roster. There's a couple other teams that spent more than they did.
And Ohio State beat them both.
And Ohio State beat them both. So I'm just saying, this idea that Ohio State's here because they spent money is just kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, why are we making fun of them for spending money? That's what you're supposed to do. Also, let's not talk about Ohio State and money when you're talking about a program in Notre Dame that refuses to join a conference because of all the money that comes into the program. And let's be clear, if Ohio State has the means and resources to buy this roster with the money that they have, the money that they earn, and by the way, they have to distribute and share it with so many other bad teams in the Big Ten, while Notre Dame gets to keep all of their money, what does Notre Dame really have to show for it? I think Notre Dame is one of the most overrated programs in college football. Keep in mind, is Notre Dame a great college football program, or are they just a brand? They're a brand. The Dallas Cowboys, are they a great run franchise, or are they just a brand? They're a brand. The Dallas Cowboys aren't well run. They win some games. They're relevant, but they are not a great football franchise. They're just not. They are the best brand in the NFL, but they're not the best franchise, and that's Notre Dame. I don't think they're a great football program. They're not. They haven't won championships. They're not even in the conference to win conference championships. You haven't won a national championship in decades, and we're going to sit here and say these are two great programs going head-to-head on Monday night. No, it is a great program. It is a great team. It is a great brand. That's Ohio State. And then there's the brand that is Notre Dame. Stop putting Notre Dame in the same class as Ohio State. That's not a thing, and I'm not going to sit here. The only reason I've softened on Notre Dame in recent years is because I'm a Marcus Freeman fan, but at the end of the day, I'm putting my respect for Marcus Freeman to the side. Notre Dame's Notre Dame. They're going to get blown out. It is not going to be close. Ohio State, this Ohio State team, people want to bring up, well, look how they looked against, Michigan. That's fine. As Jacob just said, as Elliot just said, it's kind of the outlier. You're going to use the one game that they looked at their absolute worst and say that's who they are, while ignoring about what they look like against Tennessee, what they look like against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. Texas, obviously, they struggled because, I don't know, they're going up against a team that has NFL players on both sides of the ball and actually has a ton of talent up and down that roster. Look what they did to Texas. I don't fear Notre Dame. I just don't. Am I overlooking Notre Dame? I'm not. Am I overconfident? I am not. The bottom line is Notre Dame, to me, is one of the most overrated programs in the history of college football. I saw something the other day that going back to 1989, when you look at where a team is to start in the preseason poll and where they finish in the final poll, they have dropped 113 spots. That is the fourth most all time from 1989 to today. they constantly underachieve. No, only 3 other programs have underachieved more from preseason expectations to where they ended up finishing up. That's Notre Dame. That's who they are. They don't win national championships. They're too cowardly to join a conference to win conference championships. And they're just not better than Ohio State. It's as simple as that. Are Buckeye fans annoying? Yes. Am I being annoying about Ohio State? Yes. Do I fear Notre Dame? Do I respect Notre Dame? No, I do not. They're not a great program. They're a brand, and that's where it stops.
The conversation about the paid roster and all the money and everything is the one that really drives me up a wall, because if you look at Ohio State's roster, there's 3 starters that were transferred.
Yes.
Every single other player starting on this team was recruited and paid to come back. But recruited by Ohio State, the vast majority of that $20 million was paid to juniors to come back for their senior year and to keep playing for Ohio State, not to go get mercenaries to come in. Obviously, Will Howard's been great. Caleb Downs has been great. Quinshawn Judkins has been great. Even one of the other starters, Davison Igbinosun, he's been there for 3 years.
Yeah.
He transferred from Ole Miss, but he's been there for multiple years playing for Ryan Day, playing for this system. These Ohio State players are been in this program. They aren't these one-year transplants like you talk about a lot. And the other thing that goes into exactly what you're saying there, Notre Dame hadn't won a New Year's Six bowl game until this year. Notre Dame was 0-8 in New Year's Six games until they played Georgia. They beat Georgia with their backup quarterback. And then they go and play James Franklin, noted big game loser, in the semifinal.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden Notre Dame can win big games? I don't think so. They have to actually play a big boy program again, and we've seen what happens when other teams try to take that step. Notre Dame has taken a step this year because they beat 2 ranked service academies, a backup quarterback and James Franklin. It's ridiculous to me. We haven't seen Notre Dame look really dominant this year against good teams. They obviously played a multi-score win against Georgia, but that comes after scoring 2 touchdowns in like a 3-minute span at the end of the half and start of the next half. That's an insanely, I don't want to say lucky because they seized the opportunity, but that's a couple bounces that go your way that I think a better team like Ohio State with a healthy roster wouldn't let happen.
I'm not going to sit here and say Notre Dame has been one of the best programs in college football. But I will say, if you have to list the amount of teams that have been to 2 national championship games in the past 20 years, it's a short list. Notre Dame's going to be on that list. I think they're a fine program. I think Kinner's right. I mean, the name, the aura of Notre Dame is certainly more valuable than what they've done probably in their history. Just the all the stuff that surrounds being a fan of Notre Dame and all of that stuff. But I put a little bit of respect on them. They've done a decent job this year turning around a season that could have been easily lost after losing to Northern Illinois at home. That's a game that you quit after that. I mean, so to see them fight, win some playoff games, beat Georgia, you beat Penn State when it mattered. I mean, we can diminish what those programs have done this year, but they're big wins, and when they've had to win, they've won. It comes down to Ohio State on Monday night, and I think Ohio State's going to win. I'm pretty confident in that. If I had to bet my life on a money line, I'm taking Ohio State. But I'm not going to sit here and say Notre Dame doesn't have a chance. I'm not going to say there's a 0.0% chance. I think Notre Dame could absolutely win. It takes 2 turnovers from Will Howard for that game to completely flip on its head.
The average margin of victory in playoff national championship games from 2014 to last year is 20.5 points. I don't think Notre Dame can score 20.5 points. So Ohio State is going to cruise with ease. Even if it's a 2-score win, it's going to be as dominant as the Texas game felt.
So, and Nelly brings up a good point, too. Like, what's going to keep Notre Dame in the game? It's going to be you have to come out and you're going to have to get turnovers. The one thing that I've already seen, and I'm going to send this over to Jake because you brought up a good point before the show today about Notre Dame's approach to this. Like, Ohio State, let's bring up the outlier game, the Michigan game.
Yeah.
Ryan Day's biggest problem in the approach to that Michigan game back in November was that he knew he was talented enough to beat them, but he didn't want to just beat them. He wanted to beat them a certain way. He wanted to run the football, and they were not going to adjust anything. They made no adjustments throughout. They just said, forget it. We are going to win, and we're going to win this way. Because they could have won a lot of different ways, and they chose to go the path of most resistance, and they said, we're going to beat you. We're going to be tough. We're going to out-tough you. We're going to run the ball, and that's how we're going to beat you. And because they were stubborn, they lost that football game, and it was one of the worst losses. It was probably one of the worst losses of all college football this season when you're a 3-possession favorite, at home, and you're supposed to be a national championship contender going up against a bad Michigan team. It was a horrible loss, and their stubbornness got in their way. From the sounds of it, just hearing some clips and seeing some quotes from current Notre Dame players, it sounds like they're about to go down that same path as well as far as their stubbornness and how they want to approach this matchup with Ohio State as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Notre Dame corner Leonard Moore was quoted as saying, going into this game, we're not going to change who we are. We're going to play man coverage like we do every week. We're going to go out there and we're going to challenge these receivers. If you want to challenge Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, and Carnell Tate, be my guest. I could not be more excited for a quote like that. There is one wide receiver in America that has more than 4 yards per route ran against man coverage, Jeremiah Smith. There's one team in the country with 3 wide receivers over 3 yards per route run during man coverage. It's Ohio State. This isn't going to work for Notre Dame. And you brought up a good point before the show when we were talking about it. They can talk about this as much as they want. I think Marcus Freeman is a great coach. Marcus Freeman is an elite defensive mind. He's not going to do this. He's lying to his players because he's trying to win a football game. And when they get torched time and time again to start this game in man coverage, they're going to stop doing it and they're going to go play zone. And that might work. But these players are in their own head if they think they can beat Ohio State in man coverage.
And if they want to start out that way in man coverage, and Ohio State marches down the field and 7-0, defense gets a stop, and then Ohio State marches down the field 14-0, and then Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame says, all right, we're going to change it up a bit, and then they hold Ohio State to maybe 10 points the rest of the game. Are you confident that Notre Dame's offense against Ohio State's defense is going to be able to come from behind 14 and be able to score more than 25, 30 points to win? I just don't. I don't see that being
So to go back to the poll,
case.
you are pretty overly confident that Ohio State's going to win.
I don't think it's going to be viewed as overly confident. I think
you just said it. I think you just said it though.
My answer is a resounding yes. And the other thing I would say about that is, who cares if the fans are overconfident?
No, yeah,
the only thing I care about is if the players are overconfident. I hope they're not. And I think Ryan Day has done a phenomenal job so far with getting them to buy in and have each of these games feel like a national championship. We've seen the clips of locker room speeches and everything.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. I didn't think he would be able to. I thought he was a weak man mentally, and I didn't think he'd be able to have this team buy back in after such a heartbreaking loss like Michigan, but he has, and they've been playing as good a football as they've played in his entire tenure, and I think he can do it again. He has one more game to do it again, and I owe him a full apology, not the half one I gave a couple days ago.
What if they lose?
Well, I guarantee you he won't show up to work if they lose.
Yeah, I won't be here.
Is it now as an Ohio State fan? The cover, how important is the cover? Just a win is what you want?
Elliot. I've never cared more about 8.5 points in my entire life.
All right. Okay.
We have to cover this spread.
All right. Just making sure.
Fair enough. Look, Monday.
You're overly confident.
Yeah. Look, Monday.
Yeah, we are.
Monday is a huge day, as we know. Look, keep in mind, the old guy that says all the weird, goofy stuff, we're not going to have to hear that anymore on Monday. Like, that's what I'm most excited about on Monday because it's such a huge day, a new era, a new time. I mean, everyone's going to be better off for it. We will not have to hear the old guy that can't even put sentences together after Monday. That's what I'm most excited about. Shutting Lou Holtz up is going to be huge. Shutting Lou Holtz up is going to be big.
That goes on your top 3 bits ever right there.
Do you think he's running that Twitter account?
No, he
No,
put a
it's
video
also Kirk Herbstreit's son.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But no, Lou Holtz put out a video for 5 minutes. By the way, didn't take a breath. It was very impressive.
He doesn't breathe.
I don't think he's breathing now.
No,
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. But there you go.
He's a reptile, man.
He's a reptile. What's your final score prediction?
I don't have to give one yet.
30
It's Thursday.
34,
He has to.
34-17 Buckeyes.
Okay. I could realistically see that.
I just mean because Monday.
He
We'll be here
can wait.
Monday.
He's on
It's his
show
final
Friday,
show.
Monday.
Okay, that's right. All right, I was just
Unless you give me the leeway to move it and change it as we
change
go.
it up. Right now, I would say that the Buckeyes win this. I think it's going to be low scoring. I'm going to say it's going to be 27-17.
That works.
I'll say
That works for me.
I'll say 34-13.
See, that's a blowout.
Oh yeah, I think it's a blowout.
All right.
Mainly, and I don't think 34 points is a lot of points for Ohio State.
Playoff national championship games have been blowouts. Obviously, that number is drastically swayed by the Georgia game.
Yep.
And the last time Ohio State was in the national championship when they got ran out by Alabama. But if you're going to say statistically that this game is going to be a blowout, I cannot fathom Notre Dame blowing out Ohio State.
No.
If Notre Dame wins this game, it's going to be 14-10. It's going to be the Michigan game.
ESPN Radio.
It's going to be a Georgia-type game.
Yeah, there you go.
They'd have to return a kickoff.
Right.
It would take a little bit. There's no doubt about it. I just don't think – I think Notre Dame isn't on the tier with Ohio State in terms of programs. But I do think Notre Dame's been a fine program. Like out of all the teams in the past,
like 6 program, 5.
I mean, how many teams have made 2 national championship games in the last 20 years?
Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia,
LSU.
not in 20.
Not in threshold.
Yeah, no, 20 years they would have.
20 years. So 6 teams have made it. 7 teams have made the national championship twice. Notre Dame's one of them.
How many of those teams haven't won one?
This is just the Notre Dame.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think that's the big difference.
Yeah, we'll see.
They continue to get there, and they continue to fail time after time after time again.
Yeah, we'll see.
Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. Brian Kelly, speaking of Notre Dame, he had he was asked about his thoughts on his former team being in the national championship game, and he was asked who he would be rooting for on Monday night, and he had a lot of interesting things to say. We'll get to that when we come back. More Off the Bench next. And we are back because Casey said we had to. We were getting a little chatty-Cathy during the break.
He's a meanie pants.
Yeah.
These breaks would be 10 times longer if Casey wasn't there to usher us back on air. Because we do just get to talking.
Casey, what about you? Do you think Buckeye fans are overconfident right now heading into this matchup on Monday?
Did you hear what that last segment?
Yeah, I mean, I heard those two over there. I think they might be a little too overconfident here. Just from a history standpoint, over the last couple years, couple seasons, Notre Dame, Ohio State have been pretty close games. They've been low-scoring games, have they not?
Not particularly. The last one was 17-14, but Ohio State won 21-10 in 2022, 44-28 in 2016, 34-20 in 2006.
But the one,
Okay.
the one,
Well,
you're,
the
but the
most
one you're
recent
talking about
ones-
2 years ago, though. So there was the
Last
one that the Kyle McCord one, yes. But the one before that, Ohio State, they were like 17-point favorites or something.
Yeah, they
And
won 11.
And it was 21-10, like you
Yeah.
said. So it's going to be a low-scoring game. That's why I think you guys are too overconfident, because I think you both believe that it could lead to a blowout. I don't think it's going to be – I guess a 10-21 is technically a blowout.
If they
but
win
it's
by
gonna be
11
low-scoring.
points,
Yeah,
that's
it's going
a
to be
blowout.
it's going to be low-scoring. I don't think it's going to be a Ohio State offensively dominated game.
What is? I know this sounds silly. What are your definitions of what a blowout is? Because here's the deal: if Ohio State wins 27-10, that's technically a blowout. But that means Ohio State didn't. I don't think they played. That means
Look,
Notre Dame played well.
I have takes about blowouts that scores don't matter and it's game feel. I think you could have a 3-point win that's a blowout if a team scores 2 garbage time touchdowns and you're controlling the game.
So did
the whole
Michigan
time.
blow out Ohio State? Like, because they totally
No, 'cause
they
Ohio State had the
dominated
ball
Ohio
at
State.
the end, down a score, and then they turned it over. Like I think it comes down to honestly having possession of the ball with like a chance to take the lead type of thing. Ohio State could win this game by 7, and I could feel like it's a blowout.
Yeah.
Like I don't. It's all about game control.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It depends on how the game unfolds. If Ohio State early goes up 21-0, I would consider that a blowout.
Well,
even
and
if the
conversely,
final
Ohio
score-
State could win by 14-17, and I could feel like it's not a blowout.
And that's what I meant by that. I don't think 28 points or whatever is a lot of points for Ohio State. And it also depends when you score them. If you pick up your 28th point and with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, I don't think you technically dominated them if that's
Right.
the case, because you just tacked on a score late.
An interesting thing that I people keep bringing up about that game that you just talked about, the game last year, Kyle McCord in Notre Dame getting that win on the last play of the game. A lot of Notre Dame fans posting that and saying, you can only beat us on the last play of the game, right at the end when we were a much, much better team this year.
So is Ohio State.
The play that won that game is Syracuse's quarterback handing the ball off to Toledo's running back.
Yeah.
We're not even the same squad, even close to the same squad as
both
last
teams
year.
are different.
Yeah.
Both teams are very different. I just think that it won't be offensively dominated one side or the other.
That's fair.
I can see Ohio State.
Now, what if Ohio State defensively dominates the game?
Yeah, I can see that possibly, but I thought that's what was going to happen with Penn State and Riley Leonard, and he just managed to make plays. They ended up finding the run game eventually, but we'll see.
Brian Kelly, former Notre Dame coach, was asked, and by the way, he technically left Notre Dame because he felt he wanted to go somewhere where he can actually go win a national championship. And ironically enough, Marcus Freeman, to Marcus Freeman's credit, has been able to lead Notre Dame to the national championship game.
Marcus Freeman won a bigger game in Louisiana than Brian Kelly ever has.
I mean, let's be clear. So Brian Kelly was recently asked about his thoughts on the national championship matchup between his former team Notre Dame and Ohio State, and had this to say. Now, let me pull this quote up, Casey, my bad. I thought that would show up on the screen a little bigger. But so this is what Brian Kelly had to say regarding his thoughts on the matchup. He says a lot of the guys, all right, this is Brian Kelly on the Notre Dame side, a lot of the guys that are on both sides of the ball, I recruited. Obviously, I want to see those guys win it all, and I think they're in a great position. Totally excited for those guys. Totally, guys. He's totally excited for those guys. Why is he excited for those guys? Because a lot of those guys, he had to make sure you knew, he recruited. I like Brian Kelly's little message here. I like that he's reminding people that, hey, Marcus Freeman, doing a swell job, buddy, but you're doing it with my guys. Yeah. I definitely noticed. That popped off the page the second I saw it. Good for him. He's playing the game well.
I respect Brian Kelly for never changing from being the biggest scumbag in the entire world. I mean, he leaves Notre Dame, and the first thing he does is just poo-poo the entire program, every player there, every coach there, about how, you can't win there. They don't give you the resources to win there. And then instantly, Marcus Freeman gets to that mountaintop, and the first thing Brian Kelly does is, my guys are there. Of course you have the ability to win things. So, yeah, Brian Kelly just being, exactly what we all know he is.
I'm gonna be careful. Brian Kelly is one of my least favorite people that have ever walked the planet.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Brian Kelly guy. Him making about him after he continues to fail at LSU, good for you, buddy. Good. I'm glad that's your roster. I'm glad somebody was able to do what you were never capable of doing and what you'll never be capable of doing. I don't think you talk about like Notre Dame. Notre Dame's not a great program, right? I don't think Brian Kelly's a good coach. I don't think Brian Kelly's a great coach. And I don't think he's ever won a big game. And like all those feelings that you had about the Notre Dame program, I think a lot of it had to do with that guy right there, opposed to Notre Dame.
So we can all agree we all don't like Brian Kelly, correct?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I'm not a big Brian Kelly guy.
I'd say so.
Totally fine. I'm not a Brian Kelly guy either. But he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Look, we do this all the time. Like when don't. So, for instance, I remember when the Steelers won when Mike Tomlin won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
The big narrative right off the bat that people tried to discredit it, and it wasn't even people defending Mike Tomlin. Everyone was going after Mike Tomlin saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, you won that Super Bowl, but those were all Bill Cowher's guys. Like those, same thing with Tony Dungy. Remember when the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, of course, it was, that Super Bowl that Gruden would go on to win, he won that with Tony Dungy's guys. Like that narrative exists everywhere. That happens in all of sports. Now, I think that because Brian Kelly is such an unlikable figure, he's not going to be given that same narrative because he's not likable. Bill Cowher was likable by Pittsburgh and most national media, right? And Tony Dungy was very likable. Everyone loved Tony Dungy, and everyone felt bad for Tony Dungy that when he left, it was, of course, So I think it's kind of one of those things as I look at this situation now. I don't think Brian Kelly's wrong in wanting to remind people that, hey, they're my guys, this national championship, because what's the one thing we bragged about Notre Dame? Players don't transfer out of Notre Dame. Notre Dame offers a lot of things that's beyond just football. So when players commit to play there, they're there playing football, but they're there for a lot more academic reasons than anything else. So they stay. They stick it out. Or did they stay? They trusted Marcus Freeman, so that's one reason they stayed. But they also have more on their plate than most athletes do at other schools. So it's not just about football. And I understand Brian Kelly wanting to remind people that, hey, these are my guys, and I'm happy for him. I think it could. And by the way, let's be clear. I think he is excited for them. He remembers the recruiting trail and the relationships he had with these players. I think he's happy watching them win a national championship, although he's not happy. He knows the narrative that will be used against him because of the lack of success that he's had at LSU. I think he's happy that those players are having success, and I think he's truly rooting for them from that perspective. But he's also making sure that, hey, if they do go on to beat Ohio State, my guys, I recruited those guys. I tied that knot. I did that.
Is this inadvertently an indictment on Brian Kelly? If he's saying this
yes,
is my roster, this
yes.
is my players. As soon as I left, another coach got him to this
Yeah.
peak. I feel like this is a unexpected consequence for Brian Kelly here, making it a little bit of an indictment on himself, but not surprising at all. And I mean, as you said, this does happen a lot, especially in college sports, with team success trailing over from coach to coach if players don't, transfer out. That was a big talking point this season with Kalen DeBoer in Alabama, was if he had success, it's not because of him. We have to wait until, next year, but obviously that didn't happen, and now there's a lot of other conversations happening there. But this does happen everywhere, and I do think Brian Kelly's national persona does play into him not getting a lot of credit for a lot of recruiting classes that he had spearheaded getting to a national championship.
Yeah, Ryan Day, by the way. Ryan Day, he takes over for Urban Meyer. They beat Michigan right away, by the way. Ryan Day does have a win against Michigan, okay? They beat Michigan.
He should have.
They get to the playoff. You have Justin Fields. You have, all the talent all over the place. Even though Justin Fields was technically a transfer that came in due to Ryan Day's staff right off the bat, outside of that, the defensive talent, all the stuff on offense, that was all Urban. So when Ryan Day was having all that success initially up front, a lot of those were Urban's guys. And then as Urban Meyer's players started to disappear, that's when the losing to Michigan started. That's when not being able to beat Oregon. That's when not being able to beat Michigan. That's when not being able to beat, big teams and win in big moments. Couldn't beat Alabama, couldn't beat Georgia, couldn't beat Oregon both times. When those are 100% Ryan Day guys, that's when people said, see, you needed Urban Meyer's guys to succeed. That narrative exists everywhere. And if Urban Meyer would have come out that year that they went to the national championship game and said, hey, these are my guys, I'm happy for them, people would have been pissed off at Urban Meyer because he's also not a very likable guy. By the way, going into the Hall of Fame, we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, so at the end of the day, Brian Kelly, not wrong for wanting people to know that those are his guys, I guess, either way. But yes, you're right. If they lose, if they win, no matter what happens, if they lose, he still looks scummy for having to remind people that they're his guys. But if they win, would they have won if you were the head coach? That would be the big question mark.
That's the question I ask myself, too, all the time is if he didn't abandon UC right before the biggest game in program history, would we have won that game? And now we'll never know because he quit on his players and his fan base.
So
Fair. UC has a hell of a run of football coaches getting you to a good spot and then quitting on the team and fan base.
Real quick. And they quit so quick.
And they get to that other school.
And they live there. They've been living there.
They get there quick, man.
Brian Kelly also goes on to say, I wasn't leaving Notre Dame because I couldn't win a championship. You can win championships at Notre Dame, but I chose another path because I wanted a different challenge.
What's the other challenge?
Trying to work on that, Southern accent.
I guess.
My family.
Making TikTok videos.
Oh my gosh, that's so cringe.
I wish we had.
That was cringe.
Can you read that quote again?
Yes, because I already know. Yep. So Brian Kelly, again, after he talks about how happy he is for Notre Dame, because he had to remind people those are his guys. He was also asked about, something he said previously that led to him leaving Notre Dame. But he goes on to say, I wasn't leaving Notre Dame because I couldn't win a championship. You could win championships at Notre Dame, but I chose another path because I wanted a different challenge. Jacob.
When Brian Kelly took the job at LSU, he was immediately asked why he left Notre Dame, and his response was, quote, I want to be in an environment where I have the resources to win a national championship.
There you go.
Thanks, Brian.
You know what I would have respected Brian Kelly more for? If he would have leaned into that versus saying this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, even though they didn't like Brian Kelly, understood why you go to LSU. For one, even though Notre Dame makes bank with the TV money and everything, the collective for LSU is one of the best collectives in all of college football. Obviously, Notre Dame, or you look at LSU, Nick Saban won a national championship there. Les Miles won a national championship there. Ed Orgeron wins a national championship there. You can win national championships there. It's not like a lot of people are wondering at Alabama, although championships have been won there before Nick Saban. Look at the gap between when Nick Saban won and the previous dynasty run in Alabama. Like, Alabama desperately needed Nick Saban. LSU doesn't desperately need that figurehead coach to come in and win titles for him because the last 3 head coaches won at LSU. So him going there, we're a program that consistently wins national championships, basically at the same pace Ohio State does, about once a decade. They have unlimited, collective funds. I mean, they're in the SEC. More money from, obviously not more than technically Notre Dame, but the money that comes from the SEC. I had no problem with him leaving Notre Dame. I really didn't. When he left to go to LSU from Notre Dame, I actually felt that was a step up, to be quite honest with you, because at the same time, we talked about the academic stuff, that the academic standards to go to Notre Dame actually make it pretty hard, and you have to be a little bit more selective with the recruits that you go after. So there's one reason why Notre Dame is always never the more talented team when they run into some of these teams throughout the playoff run, is because of that. Those are the challenges he was talking about. Lean into that. Just say that. Why do you have to say goofy things like this? Because now you look like a psychopath again. So can't defend him there.
I'm with you. It's about as flippy-floppy as you get when you compare those two quotes.
All right. Anything else on your guy, Brian Kelly?
No.
Oh, I have a question. Deshaun Watson, Brian Kelly, on the dislike meter, where do they fall for you? Who's ahead of whom, Elliot?
I don't hate that question.
It's a good question.
I think your quarterback's a pretty bad guy. So I'm going to say quarterback is dead last.
Oh, so you like Brian Kelly?
No.
You like him just more than Deshaun?
I guess.
Wouldn't even use the word like.
Yeah. You're just twisting it like a pretzel. That's all, I get it. All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Let's do a little buy or sell. More Off the Bench when we come back. All right, and we are back Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruhr, and Jacob Tissett with you here. A little buy or sell time. Throw it out.
Love
Tell
it.
me if you buy it or sell it, if you love it or hate it, however you want to do it, if it's cap or no cap, however you want to do this. But buy or sell is what we'll kick off the segment with here. Let's just make this one easy. Buy or sell Deion Sanders being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys in 2025. Are we buying Deion to Dallas in 25, or are we selling that? Elliot, we'll start with you.
I'm going to sell it because I don't think that is a match made in heaven. I don't think it is. I think that's probably what Deion would want. I just don't think that Jerry really wants that. I don't think Jerry wants a guy that isn't going to listen to him word for word, do whatever he says. I'm going to sell.
I'm going to buy it. And that sounds crazy. I don't think Deion's going to the league unless he's coaching Shedeur. And I don't think he's getting that opportunity anywhere other than Dallas, at least immediately. And that's crazy to say with a $60 million quarterback in Dak Prescott. But I think the only owner crazy enough to move around the draft capital and do the dance of signing Deion and moving up to get his son in the same offseason is Jerry Jones. So if Deion goes to the NFL, I think it will be in Dallas with Shedeur. And I guess I'm buying it then.
So
You don't think that Jerry knows that once Deion comes, like Deion's like larger than life. Jerry is also larger than life, and I think Jerry likes to be the king of the larger than life.
I think Jerry wants to win a Super Bowl.
That's what it all. That's all it is, and it could be that. It certainly could be that. I just know Jerry has probably one of the bigger egos
For sure.
in professional sports. To bring on a guy who probably has an even bigger ego, or at least a similar ego, I don't think that pairs well.
I don't think it would work.
Yeah, well, okay.
I don't think it would work.
Then I guess maybe, but
I just think Jerry dropping a "we hired Dion" nuke is not even in like my top 5 most surprising things this offseason.
that's fair.
So, and I thought the same thing about the egos clashing, but like Troy Aikman and a lot of Dallas media have come out and said, and Skip Bayless, even during the time covering the Cowboys back in the 90s, that there was only one player that could sit in the same room with Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones would actually listen to that particular player, and that was Deion Sanders. Like, Deion Sanders might be the one guy that can sit across from Jerry Jones and say, I need this, make it happen, and Jerry would do it. Now, what I would see happening is I wouldn't see the egos clashing early on. I wouldn't see the egos clashing until success starts happening, and then Jerry wants credit for the success, and then there's Deion, the figurehead of the success, and Deion coming in to save the Cowboys. Like, that's the thing, too. Jerry doesn't want a figurehead to come in to save the Cowboys because he doesn't view the Cowboys need saving. Deion would come in if he had success in that. Let me ask you guys this, though. I love Deion Sanders, the personality, former Red, one of the greatest athletes of all time. He's winning games.
Yeah.
What has he won? He's winning games. What has he won? He didn't win a championship with the HBCU level. He's turned Colorado around. He didn't even do it at the level that Cincinnati did for Indiana. And Indiana did it in arguably the best conference of college football this year. What exactly has Deion done? The reason I'm going to buy this is because Deion technically hasn't proven that he's a championship level coach at any level. So if that's the case, going to Dallas where you're going to have a built-in excuse to lose for 1, maybe 2 years, I think is good for Deion because he gets 2 more years of being Deion. Deion's, Shador's gone all this. When they lose at Colorado next year or just finish above 500 and maybe make a bowl game again and they don't make the playoff again, that's just another year of Deion. Not like when I think of Deion, you would think that he's in the national championship game or in the quarterfinals, semifinals, at least the 12-team playoff in a bad Big 12, and you couldn't even do that. And that's with a guy that's going to be drafted in the top 10. That's with 2 guys.
Yeah.
You had 2 guys that are going to be drafted in the top 10. And you couldn't make the playoff in a bad conference. How good of a head coach is Deion Sanders? That's why I think he does this, is because he might get exposed the longer he stays at Colorado. Dallas at least buys him a few years. And if he fails there, guess what? We'll give him the benefit of the doubt the way we give every head coach the benefit of the doubt in Dallas because the evil Jerry Jones got in the way. I think Dallas makes all the sense in the world. It prolongs this idea that Deion's just this amazing head football coach. I love Deion. I'm not sold that he's this elite level head coach, to be quite honest.
2 major reports come out in the last hour that kind of go along with this storyline. It was reported from Deion Sanders' camp that he would almost certainly take the Cowboys job if Jerry offered it to him. That's reported by Ed Werder. So at least he wants to go to the NFL if that opportunity is provided. And another thing that maybe makes me sell it a little bit, it's reported by Jonathan Jones that Bill Belichick has not inked his contract at North Carolina yet.
Really?
Unsigned at North Carolina, according to Jonathan Jones of NFL and CBS. So obviously it was reported that Bill had some interest in the Cowboys job. Did not hear that it was going to open up before taking the job at North Carolina. Don't know how that'll all work with recruits and everything else he has in place already at North Carolina, taking that job, signing offer sheets and stuff like that. But if he hasn't signed his contract yet, I wonder if there's a route for him to get back to the league and maybe even Dallas.
If Bill Belichick does that, to me that would be the scummiest thing.
Yeah.
People talk about that just so nonchalantly, like, oh yeah, he can go to the league actually before anytime after June with that $1 million buyout. That's the most messed up thing in the world. It's to me if he actually does that. But I think he makes sense in Dallas. But for him to do that, he would have to do one of the scummiest things in the world. And I think that so if you do that, your lasting memory of Bill Belichick, because I don't think it works in Dallas, by the way, because unless you get a quarterback and all of a sudden just turn into this amazing team, the downfall of the Patriots, couldn't even get a head coaching job in the first cycle and a half of that. Then you screw over North Carolina, and then you go to Dallas, and my take is they wouldn't succeed right away, but he'll at least get the all-time wins record. I don't know. That'd be a very weird departure of a guy for a great coaching career that he's had.
Yeah, it'd be certainly questionable.
Who do you think fits less in Dallas?
I think Bill fits perfectly.
You think Bill fits perfectly?
I heard this morning a great take. Jerry loves to talk. Bill Belichick doesn't. Mike McCarthy liked to talk. Jerry Jones liked to talk. And when they would say things, they would expose the fact that they're not on the same page. Bill Belichick would never expose anything because, well, we're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
We're on to Cleveland. We're on to whatever. They work out from that standpoint, but,
Fred brings up a good point. Bill's girlfriend might be a Dallas cheerleader.
That's a
if he
valid
goes to
point.
Dallas.
Or that's part of the deal. Hey, I will come coach your team if my 24-year-old girlfriend could be a cheerleader.
How about that?
So
That'd be an
valid.
interesting little nugget.
Very valid. Buy or sell on to the next one. Obviously, the defensive coordinator conversation is going to be a continued talking point for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's been quiet this week. We've talked about it a few times, but the longer and longer we go without hearing any true big names being the next defensive coordinator in Cincinnati, you have to think that that national title game is what the Bengals are waiting on. Buy or sell Al Golden being named the Bengals defensive coordinator next Tuesday?
I'm going to buy it because with the names we've thrown out, this is the happiest I'd be. So with the opportunity to buy happiness and joy, I'm going to seize it. So I'm buying Al Golden being the Bengals' next DC. I'd be overjoyed with that hire. I think it would be absolutely perfect for rebuilding this defense. We have a lot of holes. We need a guy who's going to be here for more than 1 year or so, and that was always my worry with a Robert Saleh, that he's already getting a ton of head coaching interviews.
Yep.
So maybe he'd be gone after just a year of playing well. I think Al Golden's here for at least 3 to 4. So that would be a really, really good hire. I'll buy it because I'd be so happy.
I'm going to sell it on the condition that they don't win this national championship. I think if he were to win the national championship, I'd be more inclined to buy it. I don't think that, and this is just, based on what you guys were saying earlier on in the show, if this is a blowout, if Ohio State wins this game, let's say they win this game 35-3, and it's just an utter domination, I think he's going to be less inclined to leave. I think that teams are going to be less inclined to reach out to him, and we'll see. We'll see on that. I think he is a desired defensive coordinator candidate. I don't think the Bengals would go that route yet. I don't think they're going to go that route. I think they're going to go with somebody who's had experience in the NFL, a lot more experience in the NFL, and we'll play it safe almost, because this seems like a risky play. This seems like taking Al Golden, coming off a great year at Notre Dame. He's done a phenomenal job. I just don't think the Bengals organization is going to run that way.
So
I'm in the exact opposite boat. I think if they win,
really,
he's 100% gone. If it's not the Bengals, it's somewhere else. And if they lose, he'll be back.
Well, that's what I said. Isn't that what I said?
No, you said if they win, the NFL would be more inclined to hire him. I'm saying if Notre Dame wins the national championship.
I see.
yeah, like if they win, by the way, if Notre Dame beats Ohio State on Monday night, that means they found a way to neutralize Ohio State's offensive attack.
Yeah.
I think Al Golden might be put into a different category of just going to be
expensive.
some. Yeah, I think he'd be put in a different category of just going to the NFL to be a cheap end defensive coordinator. I think he could be in the head coaching category for some lower end college football programs.
That's another thing that we have to potentially think about, is competing with a $4 or $5 million offer to go be a head coach at some low tier school.
Yeah.
So, and
lower tier school. I mean, probably still power conference.
Yeah, and I don't think he's there now. But it's not just because he wins the national championship, now teams want him. It's because of who he's going up against.
Yeah.
If you come up with the defensive scheme, or if you come up with if your defense stops Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate and Will Howard, who's been playing lights out, and obviously Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson, and you neutralize that offense, yes, I think he's immediately put into that. And maybe they don't even have to win it, but Notre Dame loses by 3 in a low-scoring game. I just think, forget the result of the game. If they just neutralize Ohio State's attack on Monday, I think Al Golden might be out of the Bengals price range. So, again, it's still up to be determined. I'm buying this, though, because it feels like that's where this is going, because unless I'm wrong, has there been any tweets? Like, I keep seeing all these, so-and-so's interviewing Robert Saleh, so-and-so is interviewing this guy and this guy. The Bengals they've been silent. They got a couple interviews out of the way early on, and they've been silent ever since, right?
Yeah, there was a report from Tom Pelissero a couple days ago, 2 days ago, that the Bengals could potentially have interest in Wink Martindale, who was interviewing with the Falcons and the Colts, but that was later reported as not true from Paul Dehner Jr. and a couple other guys associated with the Bengals. So still just the Patriots DC and then Patrick Graham, the Raiders DC. The only 2 interviews that I've seen so far.
So to me, the fact that the most recent interview that they've been interested in, Wink Martindale out of college, that means the front office for the Bengals is looking at the college route because Wink Martindale would be cheap. But he's been in the NFL, right? Like,
he was the Raiders. He was the Ravens DC when Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase absolutely dominated them.
Yeah, maybe not go.
That's
go
why
down
I don't
that
want
route. Yeah, fair enough. So there you go. All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing Game of Dayton. A couple more buy or sells we'll get to on the other side. More Off the Bench when we come back. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett with you here. The last buy or sell, by the way, was buy or sell. Al Golden being the Bengals' next defensive coordinator. Casey, tag you in. I know we've talked about it throughout the week, but are you buying or are you selling Al Golden being the Bengals' next being named the defensive coordinator next Tuesday after the national championship game?
By Tuesday, I think I'm going to sell. I do think that the Bengals are biding their time. I've heard a lot of comments saying, like, we are the first domino to fall for all the other defensive coordinators. I don't think that's the case. I think the league is waiting on some of the head coaching hirings first. I think Robert Saleh is one of the names that's been thrown around that could be a head coach or a DC. And I think the same can be said for a lot of different guys. So by Tuesday, no. But the other part of this conversation was, is he worthy of that spot if he wins a national championship? Yes, I do think that's 100% true. I think he shoots up the board if he does win one. And that goes across the entire NFL. And I think it would be a great hire for the Bengals. I don't think they can really go wrong with a lot of different guys that have been in the ring here, throwing their hat in the ring. But by Tuesday, I'm going to have to sell that. I think they're going to wait a week or two, or maybe even past the whole playoffs, because that's what they did for basically all their coaching hirings. I remember last time when we were looking for Lou Anarumo, it took weeks. It took so long for us to find a DC, and this was after the Super Bowl. So, in my opinion, I think it's going to be a lot longer of a wait.
So you guys have said names that you would like. You already said you didn't like Wink Martindale for obvious reasons, but we always throw out the names that you would like to see. Is there a name that is popping? So you said you've seen quite a few names, Casey, that you're like, I kind of like, really can't go wrong. Is there a name you don't want to be the Bengals defensive coordinator? If this name was announced that so-and-so is the Bengals' new defensive coordinator, Casey would be upset. What are some of those names, or is there a name?
The only one that was on that list was Wink, and it's already been confirmed that he was not in the running. So that's a good sign. From the names that I've heard, there's not one that I'm super like, oh, don't hire him. But I think the one I'm most cool on is probably the Patriots guy. It's not Patrick Graham. That's not his name. That's the Raiders guy, right?
Covington's the Patriots guy.
Covington, yeah. That's probably the one I'd be the most cool on. But everyone else, I think I'd be slam dunk. Well, not slam dunk, but I would be happy with. It would be a decent hire. I think there's reasons to like all the guys. Like Eberflus, solid defense, has a proven track record on defense in general, even as a head coach, developing young talent. Patrick Graham was able to really get nothing out of something, or something out of nothing with that Raiders D-line. Also young guys that he developed. Al Golden, we've already talked about him plenty. Yeah, I mean, I think I could find something that I would be happy with the Bengals' decision.
The DC hire I'm mad about is the guy I have to look up and see who he is and where he's been and what he's done. If the Bengals hire someone that we've talked about, someone that I know, I'm going to be able to talk myself into him being a good piece to this team and a good hire for the Bengals. I know we're working in some financial constraints, which whether we like it or not, that's the reality of being a Bengals fan, and we have to live with some of that. And if we hire a name that I feel like they went out and tried to get someone that is on the higher end of things, being a name that we recognize, especially someone, regardless of where you fall on him, especially someone like a Matt Eberflus, who has been a head coach, who is a recognizable name in the league, I'd be pretty happy with any name that we've recommended or talked about being in the conversation. But it's a guy that I don't know where he's been or what he's done that would really drive me up a wall.
Do you have one? Do you have is there a DC?
I just think all these names that I've already said, I don't want the reunions with Mike Zimmer.
That's fair.
Think if I had to Marvin Lewis, if I had to pick one, it would be the Eberflus, but that's all I've got. Al Golden I think would be fine. I would just prefer somebody that has a lot of NFL experience coaching defense. But if I'm going to be honest, no, I don't have a ton.
Fair enough. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Continuing on with buy or sell. I want to stay with the coaching conversation, Casey, so we're going to move on to the next one. You're a big old Caleb Williams guy.
I am a big Caleb Williams
defender. And there is a former head coach that was just released by the Dallas Cowboys that all of a sudden I'm curious people's perception of him, but Mike McCarthy did just interview with the Chicago Bears for their head coaching vacancy. Buy or sell Mike McCarthy being a good fit for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears?
Oh, I'm buying it. I think Mike McCarthy's an awesome coach who wins a lot of games. In 18 head coaching seasons for both Mike McCarthy and Mike Tomlin, they have the same amount of playoff appearances. McCarthy has one more division title, and McCarthy has more playoff wins. We talk about Mike Tomlin as being an elite head coach. Mike McCarthy also has a ring. So I think McCarthy's a phenomenal head coach. I think he'd be perfect for Chicago. He ushered in Aaron Rodgers, the transition from Brett Favre to a young Aaron Rodgers. He's done it with young quarterbacks before. I think the main priority for the Bears needs to be getting Caleb Williams along to where you think he's going to be. And I think Mike McCarthy is a really, really good coach to do that. I think he'd be a good hire for the Bears. It's between the Bears and the Saints, reportedly, for Mike McCarthy, and it doesn't make any sense to me why he would go to New Orleans, but it has been reported that coaches like Ben Johnson, other really elite names in this head coaching search, have been turned off by the Bears front office and their ownership and how they handled this search and how they've handled their coaches in the past. They're not interested in coaching a great prospect like Caleb Williams because of the restraints put on them by the ownership and the GM. So maybe that'll turn Mike McCarthy off of the Bears and not the other way around. I think the McCaskey family is really holding back where that Bears organization can go, and they've been doing it for decades now. But if they can get Mike McCarthy, it'd be a really good hire for Caleb Williams.
I think that the NFL went to the era of, let's hire a young, up-and-coming coach that showed a lot of promise at his role, at his team. I think there's also a lot of value in the guy that's been in the league a long time, that's shown that he can work with up-and-coming superstars like Aaron Rodgers. I think that a coach that's had a history of winning, that's had success in the NFL, that's a guy I would want mentoring my young quarterback. It wouldn't be the young Ben Johnson. It wouldn't be the young type of NFL coach who we don't really know what they are yet. I think it's perfect. Somebody with answers, somebody that can help Caleb. I think Mike McCarthy is a solid option for the Chicago Bears, and I think it's probably one of the more likely options for Caleb this offseason.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up. I saw that graphic. Mike Tomlin is Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is Mike Tomlin. And this idea that if Mike Tomlin was, if the Steelers moved on from Mike Tomlin, teams would be lining up to get Mike Tomlin. Well, why aren't teams lining up to get Mike McCarthy? Because that's exactly who Mike Tomlin is. And for those that are thinking I'm poo-pooing on Mike Tomlin, I'm not. I know Mike Tomlin's a good coach, but I think that's how confident I am in Mike McCarthy as well. Is he a top 5 coach in the NFL? No, I don't think Mike Tomlin is either.
He's 169, 104, and 2.
All he does is win.
169 and 104.
All he does is win. And the fact that he had that success at Green Bay, won a Super Bowl in Green Bay, I think that adds that layer to how cool it would be to see him coach with the Bears as well. It kind of adds to that little rivalry over there as well. But the offensive success that he has had everywhere he goes, you look at what he did in Dallas. People are going to remember this last season and how it didn't work out. But Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, they were always a top 5 offensive team in football during his entire run there. Stupid numbers that they put up. I think Mike McCarthy's a great fit for the Chicago Bears. I think he's a great fit for if you want to go to the Jaguars and have Trevor Lawrence be your quarterback. I think Mike McCarthy is a very underrated coach, and I'd like to see what he could do with Caleb Williams. But if the Bears are as bad of an organization as everybody says, you just escaped the hell that was Dallas and how they're poorly run right now. Do you want to go back into another weird situation? The problem is, what's the best situation available? Take out quarterback. What are the best organizations available right now? The Jaguars or Bears? Who's a better organization? Is it the Jags?
I think the best job right now in terms of just strictly organization moving the rosters is Vegas because they don't have a GM. And if you're a head coach that gets hired there, you get to pick your GM.
Well, the Fox broadcaster, Tom Brady.
He's the owner. He's the one pulling the strings at the top. But after firing Telesco, that's why all the reports are that Ben Johnson's going to Vegas is because he can pick his GM and make sure that they're aligned in roster construction, everything along those lines. I think that is such an underrated part of going into a coaching search, and that's why we clowned the Jaguars for keeping Trent Baalke and the Colts for keeping Chris Ballard, because having a GM, well, I guess the Colts didn't fire Shane Steichen, but the Jaguars looking for a head coach while keeping Trent Baalke, who's never won anything, fire them both. It gives you a leg up in every single search. So I don't understand why organizations don't move on from both at the same time. The Bears did it too. They kept Ryan Poles, fired Matt Eberflus. They did it the time before with John Fox, and they did it the time before with Matt Nagy, John Fox before that. But they continue to have the GM carry over to the next coach, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, the Raiders, though, I don't want to go lead a team in Las Vegas, not because of where they're at. But I don't want to be in a division. Like, I think Bo Nix, he doesn't scare me, but Bo Nix is going to be very good. And the Broncos are very good defensively. They have a hell of a coach. The Chiefs aren't going anywhere. And I think we just saw the worst of the Chargers for a few years, at least. So that's a hell of a division over there. I would stay, away from that. But again, so is the NFC North as well. But either way. All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Let's go on to one more with the – well, let's talk – you want to talk about the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, Browns talk.
I'd love it.
Let's do a buy or sell. The final buy or sell we'll do on the other side when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. A couple Deion things that have kind of come out, as you talked about, Jake, over the last hour. There are many rumors coming out right now that Deion has basically let it be known that if Dallas officially offers him the job, that he'll take it. Pretty interesting. So Deion's done a couple media hits as of late. That's where that's kind of stemming from as well. But when Deion was asked about, his son, Shedeur Sanders, and of course, would he actually step in and allow certain teams or deny certain teams the opportunity to draft his son and Shedeur Sanders? He did say that, yes, there are some teams, that there are there are certain teams that he would step in and deny the opportunity to draft his son. Buy or sell, the Browns being one of those teams. Are the Browns one of those teams that Deion would step in and block from signing or drafting Shedeur Sanders in the 2025 NFL Draft?
Funny enough, I think Deion answered this question about 2018. Casey, I sent you the tweet. I love what the Browns have done this offseason, but if I'm a young QB, ain't no way I'm going to Cleveland. I would pull an Eli Manning if possible. Hashtag think about that. Hashtag truth.
Hashtag truth.
So hashtag truth, Kenner. I think Deion Sanders would block Shedeur Sanders from going to Cleveland, and it doesn't help you that the Giants are right behind you, and Shedeur was wearing those Giants cleats in the bowl game.
I'm gonna be honest. I do disagree with the notion that quarterbacks should decline a draft spot, right? Like, if a team drafts you, I do think you should honor that. I think you should be a part of the team. That's where you were drafted. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. The Browns are the exception. The Browns are absolutely the exception, where they've had a never-ending rotation of quarterbacks, failed quarterback experiments for 25 years now. There's no way if I was a star quarterback would I risk going to Cleveland. No chance. So am I going to buy or sell that they're one of those teams? Yes, I'm going to buy it.
Buy or sell that the Browns are one of those teams? I 1,000,000,000% buy that the Browns are one of those teams. Do I agree that they should be one of those teams? Now, you'll just say I'm a homer, so that's fine, and I understand where you're coming from with that. But keep in mind, Deion's supposed to be this mature adult that is leading college programs or a possible NFL team. And you're more obsessed with the city of which your son plays in because of the glitz and glamour of New York than you are the opportunity to go and better your son as a football player. If you think you could do that, fine. Then you go be the coach of the Giants or, get him to Dallas. I understand that. If he wants to maneuver his son to go play for him somewhere, fine. But because New York is New York and it's cooler, that's a better fit than Cleveland, who, again, take out the city. It's about the offense and the coach that you'd be going to play for. I don't care what anybody says. Kevin Stefanski is actually probably one of the better things that could happen to Shedeur Sanders coming into the NFL. You brought up the history of Cleveland. I can't argue that. It's been an absolute murderer's row of quarterbacks. You can. I'm meeting you halfway. Cool it. I'm meeting you. No, but like the end of the day, like, yes, Cleveland has not had success with quarterbacks throughout the duration of their return to Cleveland, no doubt about it, but let's not ignore the success that Kevin Stefanski has had with quarterbacks. Let's not act like this guy can't coach quarterbacks or have success with quarterbacks who are worthy of being quarterbacks. The only quarterback that Kevin Stefanski, or the two that he has not had success with, is DTR, who's not good, and Deshaun Watson, who has just been an absolute train wreck. He has won with geriatric Joe Flacco. He has figured it out and brought up the best. I mean, he won Coach of the Year multiple times and won a playoff game with Baker Mayfield the first time around during his rookie run. Obviously we saw how good the offense looked when they had Jameis Winston before they changed quarterbacks to see what they had with DTR. I'm not saying Cleveland makes the playoffs with Jameis Winston because they dug themselves in a hole too early on, but that offense was clicking. I do have a problem with this idea that Cleveland, you can't send your quarterback there. If you want to make it about the city and about the history of the team, fine, but you have to have the smarts to look at the situation. You mean to tell me Kevin Stefanski is the worst thing that can happen to Shedeur Sanders, who is already being viewed as not a first-round pick anyways, but will be drafted high because the quarterbacks are bad in this draft to begin with? I buy that he's one of those, that they're one of those teams because Dion does not want him to go there. But this idea that Kevin Stefanski would not be good for Shedeur is just asinine, if you ask me.
I 100% agree with you that I think Kevin Stefanski would be one of the best coaches for Shedeur to land with. How long is Kevin Stefanski the coach in Cleveland?
Well,
we've already heard about the seat getting a little hot, and obviously the Deshaun Watson thing makes it, But if they draft Shedeur and it doesn't work, then you're firing Stefanski after a year or two, and then you have Shedeur and you have to get a new quarterback, and then you are just the Browns, and you don't have Stefanski at the helm anymore?
Well, from this position from Dion's side, if it doesn't work, Kevin Stefanski has done enough to show that he can win with a lot of. He made the playoffs last year and won 11 games with 5 different quarterbacks.
Right.
Stefanski has proven he can win with quarterbacks. He's proven that he can get the best out of quarterbacks. That's already been proven.
But unless he's there long term.
But if Shedeur is who they think he is, then he will be there.
I guess in that sense, yeah.
So to me, if Shedeur goes there and it doesn't work out, I'm not willing to say it's because of Kevin Stefanski.
Then it's on Shedeur. Yeah.
But
that's fair.
And maybe I'm giving too much credit to Kevin Stefanski, but if Kevin Stefanski has done exactly what he's done in Cleveland with the results of the offense anywhere else, he's getting way more praise. But I think, again, he's also getting – and by the way, he handled that Deshaun thing poorly. I don't know if you read that report. I'm not going to ignore that. That was really messed up. We could talk about that more in a bit. But just from a Dion perspective, from a Shedeur Sanders perspective, Shedeur is not as good as what everyone says to begin with, and he's acting like he's coming in as Joe Burrow, this Heisman-winning, national championship, undefeated type level quarterback, and he's not. So that's my problem too. That's why I got mad when Eli did it. I'm like, you're not good enough to do that. I don't think Shedeur's good enough to do this. The quarterbacks that are good enough to do it, they're always happy. They go where they want happily. Like, you know what I mean? Like Joe Burrow, there was the talks of at the time, a lot of people were urging Joe Burrow not to be drafted by Cincinnati, and a lot of those reasons were valid. But he stuck it out with Cincinnati, and he's elevated them. And if Shedeur is a Joe Burrow, if Shedeur is this Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson, then he should be good enough to go elevate a team as well. The Texans were considered one of the worst organizations in football a few years ago. Draft C.J. Stroud. They've won 2 playoff games, won back-to-back division championships in the playoffs back-to-back years. Like, if the quarterback is special, you can go elevate that franchise. The Commanders were a joke. Absolute joke. Look what Jane Daniels is doing. Shedeur, if he's the real, stop making this about how Cleveland's a joke. Shedeur is being viewed as a joke too. Let's stop overpropping Shedeur to act like Cleveland's not good enough for Shedeur. When I don't think Shedeur is good enough for the NFL, that's the big question mark right now.
But I think all those teams you've mentioned have had success with quarterbacks. The Browns.
Stop with teams. It's about the coaches. It's about the coaches.
No,
right
it's
now.
Not about the. It's about the logo.
So
he's not going to Cleveland because of the logo.
But that's idiotic to me. I understand it. I think that's idiotic. Not you.
Oh, I think that's. I think it's fairly smart.
There's no way if I'm a quarterback
if I have a choice, I'm not going to Cleveland.
And I read those 50 names.
What do those 50 names have to do with this with this coaching staff, with this organization right now?
You
just can't remove that.
You mean the organization
they have nothing to do with
that made the worst deal in sports history by bringing Deshaun Watson in? There's no way I'd associate with this franchise. And that's not to be disrespectful. It's just if I were a young quarterback like Shedeur is, and I was looking at the talent that I have and the options I have available to me, there's no way I land
But what
in
was
Cleveland.
there about Cincinnati that made Joe Burrow want to go play in Cincinnati? Because there was nothing really alluring about that either.
Bengals have had
Historic
success.
QB success.
But
The
success.
Bengals have had success.
But the situation at hand.
the Browns have had 4
We're
winning
not talking
seasons.
about
But you
instant
guys have talked
situations.
about how down the Bengals have been before Joe Burrow got there. Joe Burrow gets there. And then now look, it's a completely different story. It's not
Yeah,
like
but-
Cincinnati. There's a lot of franchises that just keep the train moving no matter who the quarterback is. That's not the
What-
Cincinnati
Dalton
Bengals.
won, Boomer won, Ken Anderson won. Like,
Won
there's
what?
quarterback success.
What do they win? What do they-
Games got to the
what-
playoffs.
Games.
got to two Super
Cleveland's
Bowls.
winning games right now.
What
Not
are-
this season, but Cleveland's been winning games. They've had multiple playoff appearances over the last 5 years.
They've
Like,
had
what
4
are we
winning
doing?
seasons in 20 years.
Right.
That's
they haven't won.
freaking tastic.
That's what that's
So they
that's
don't
the truth.
win,
But
so
that's
why
the
would a
truth.
quarterback wanna go there?
Cleveland as a whole, you're using an entire history of an organization.
Correct.
And
Correct.
ignoring the recent history. And
Correct.
the recent history is what you're being drafted to.
No, everyone is looking at the organizational history. That's the only reason they're
Then
even
why
in this
did
conversation.
so many people view Cincinnati as a joke when Joe Burrow was
Because
drafted there?
Cincinnati's
No one said-
organizational history
well,
is worlds better than the Browns.
Okay, but the Browns had nothing to do with the perception of Joe Burrow going to Cincinnati at that time. It was still viewed as a joke. Joe Burrow has made it not a joke.
I don't
it's the
think
responsibility.
it was. Joe Burrow was never going to not go to Cincinnati. That was a Colin Cowherd talking point.
It wasn't just Colin Cowherd. There was a lot of people that were kind
There
of
was a
pushing
0%
for
chance
that.
Joe
There was
Burrow was
0%
opting
chance
out of
because
Cincinnati.
also the thing is, at the same time, it's just idiotic of athletes to do that. It's a privilege to play in
That's
the
a
NFL.
fine take.
It's
to
a
have.
privilege to
That's-
play in the
that is a
NFL.
take I agree with.
But
to
I
act
think
like it's crazy to look
there's
at the
a lot of
organizational
fan
history of the
bases
Browns
out
is
there that
nuts.
can mock the Browns. I definitely don't think you're one of them.
I think
definitely
every
don't
organization
think you're one
in
of them.
every sport can mock the Browns.
They
Except for
can
the
mock
Jets.
them.
Jets are the only
but to
Jets,
sit,
maybe.
you,
And
can,
maybe the
you
Reds.
can mock and poke
Jets and the
fun.
Reds are the
Jets
only
and the
one-
Reds
of the
can.
only organizations
Mock
that
and
can't
poke
mock
fun all you want, but there's a lot of fan bases
I'm not
that
even-
even
I'm not
poke
even-
fun at the Bengals.
I'm not
at this
even-
The Bengals
particular
have won
situation.
divisions.
That's fantastic. And up until a couple, like the goalpost keeps moving because a few years ago you didn't even get to say the Bengals win playoff games. It took 30 years to finally win a playoff game. Now you get to use that, and why? Because you got the quarterback
won the
right.
North.
The Browns are a quarterback away from getting things right, just like the Bengals
Dalton
were a
won the
quarterback
North.
away. That's fan-fucking-tastic that they won the North. That's great.
okay, so
The
you're
Browns
right.
have
Andy
to
Dalton, you
believe
guys wanted Andy Dalton out because
Right,
no one
'cause he
liked
wasn't
Andy
good
Dalton
enough.
because he wasn't good enough.
And he still won more than anyone
That's
the Browns
great.
has
Andy
ever
Dalton
won.
is better than anything that the Browns have had at quarterback. Yes, absolutely.
So the organizational history at quarterback for the Browns and
So
Bengals
you-
are drastically different.
That is so stupid. Okay, Andy Dalton.
How can
That's
you
what
look at
you're
the Browns
waving
and
the
Bengals
flag
at
of how great
quarterback?
the Bengals are because of Andy Dalton.
He would be the best quarterback in Browns history.
That's great. That has nothing to do
That's the
with
whole
who the
point.
Browns are at this particular situation.
But you can't just look at this
You
situation.
absolutely can.
Well, they're obviously not.
You absolutely can. That's like saying, are the Chicago Bulls a great NBA organization right now?
I think they're not viewed as bad as they are because of the history.
They are a joke of an organization.
Right.
They haven't won anything since Michael Jordan
And
left.
they're
They are a
viewed
joke of an
as better
organization.
than they
I
currently
don't
are
think this
because
is-
of the Jordan
I
era.
don't think this is. I don't think this is personal. I think if you look at the Cleveland Browns in the past,
Why do you
13
smirk when you talk? Why do you do that? Why do you?
Because
why do you
this
do
is an obvious take that you're
Because this is-
arguing.
It's not an obvious. I'm
The Browns have
acknowledge-
the worst quarterback success of any franchise in the history of the NFL.
That's great. Kevin Stefanski doesn't. That's who the head coach is right
But you
now.
have to look at the whole organization.
You don't. What does the previous coaches that aren't here anymore have to do with Kevin Stefanski?
Well, obviously, it mattered for the coach before Kevin Stefanski. This is an organizational
Those coaches
problem.
didn't have that success. That's why Kevin Stefanski has won 2 Coach of the Years and is still here.
And when he gets fired in 2 years, when the next quarterback doesn't work, we'll have the same conversation with the next coach.
And just like all coaches get fired when the quarterback doesn't work, except for Mike Tomlin.
That's true.
Except for Mike Tomlin. And then, of course, yes, and then the Marvin Lewis thing, going back to that run, like Andy Dalton, yes, the team was winning, but you guys were all saying during that time, well, if only we had a quarterback, if only we had a quarterback. But because
If
you
you
want to
had a
win this
quarterback-
argument, Andy Dalton is just this
If you had a
amazing
quarterback with
Peyton
the
Manning
success
level
Andy
quarterback.
Dalton had in Cincinnati, we probably wouldn't talk about Shedeur blocking the Browns.
If what?
If you had a quarterback in Cleveland with the success Andy Dalton had in
had Andy
Cincinnati,
Dalton. There were
we
still
wouldn't
people
talk
talking-
about Shedeur blocking the Browns.
But there were still people and by the way, we're not talking about Shedeur blocking the Browns. We're
Deion
talking about his
blocking the
daddy
Browns.
having
I
to
think
block the
Shedeur would
Browns.
very much not like to play for the Browns.
But the bottom line is like even with the Bengals, Andy Dalton, great success there. There were still people talking about
Yeah,
why
Carson
Joe Burrow should
Palmer
not.
and
And by the
Colin
way,
Cowherd.
and where's Joe Burrow right now?
In Cincinnati.
No. Where are the Bengals right now? Oh, they didn't make the playoffs. Oh, they've missed the playoffs in 3 of the 5 years that Burrow's been here. This was the reason why everyone was like, Joe Burrow shouldn't go to Cincinnati because they're going to waste his talent. You all 3 have said how they've wasting his talent. You've all said this. But right now, all of a sudden, the Bengals are a great organization, not wasting the talent of this great
I
quarterback.
never said the Bengals are a great organization. I just said they're like 5 times what the Browns are.
Okay, I could be taller than someone that's 5'4". I'm not tall. I'm just taller than someone that's 5'4".
In that comparison,
so
you'd
if
be
you're
pretty
better
tall.
than the Browns, I'm not really sure you're making the point you think you are.
We are arguing whether it's crazy for them to block Shador going to the Browns. And it's not because the organization is the worst organization in the history of professional
You're
sports.
not being drafted to the 1986 Browns or the 1992
You're
Browns. You're being
to the
drafted to the
Browns.
2000.
The Browns is the Browns is the Browns.
You're being drafted. The Cleveland Cavaliers are, right now, they're doing good. But before that, it was LeBron James. And if you got drafted to the Cavs, that wasn't a good thing. But if you went to play with LeBron James, it was a good thing. The Cavs.
If the Browns had a LeBron James, I'd change my tune.
If anyone had a LeBron James, everyone would change
For
their
sure.
tune, regardless of the history of the franchise.
And the Browns will never get it because their history's
So
so bad.
Shador's not LeBron.
Correct.
Okay. So who the hell is he to decide where he gets to go?
I think if you believe in yourself in any standard, you wouldn't go to Cleveland.
Nobody believes in Shador at this point.
I think
Everyone's
Shador probably
mocking the
does.
Shador, and I'm sure he does.
So
What
why
a
would he go to
cocky,
Cleveland and set
arrogant
himself
dude.
up for failure?
What's that? Why? You're not guaranteed. Baker Mayfield had success there. Jameis
And then you
Winston has
kicked
had.
him
Joe
out.
Flacco has had success there.
Baker had success. You kicked
By
him
the
out.
way, Baker, everyone was fine with them kicking Baker out. Everyone was against Baker Mayfield when he was having success in Cleveland because everyone saw what we see now. Very good quarterback with the ceiling. The Buccaneers aren't going anywhere with Baker
that
Mayfield.
ceiling's
He
a
puts
lot
up big
higher than the
numbers.
quarterbacks the Browns have had since.
The ceiling, by the way, was significantly higher for the perception of what Deshaun Watson was supposed to be. No one in their right mind would have
could've
guessed
seen
that he
this
would have
coming?
had. No one would have saw that coming.
I think a lot of people saw this.
No, I promise you. If he goes
Quarterback
to
that sat on the
Atlanta,
couch for 2
by the
years,
way,
being not as
if he
good.
would have gone to Atlanta, everyone would have said, "Man, look out! The Atlanta's about to take on the world." All right, because
Dude,
no
Deshaun
one
Watson
hates
with
the.
Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan? That would have been sick.
Oh yeah, compared
Terrible
to the
weapons in Cleveland.
compared the weapons that Joe fucking Flacco won with.
A lot of F words for the radio.
Yes,
Casey,
because
that's
the hate for the Browns is
The
is
Browns
leading your
are a
argument.
joke.
Justin, it's not personal.
They're
bro.
terrible.
It's not
You
personal.
don't smirk about any other team you talk about.
I
Don't
see-
Because
tell
you're the
me-
only one
My
that defends
resting-
the
my
Browns.
resting-
I'm not the only one. I'm the only one in here that's
My
defending the
resting
Browns.
Browns
Face is
fans
the
defend the
smirk.
Browns. You're right. Everyone else
My
thinks they're the worst
resting
organization in
face is
professional
the
sports.
smirk.
Kevin Stefanski has had success with more than a handful of quarterbacks, and you're bringing up the one that he has not had success with and acting like that's the whole narrative of the Cleveland Browns. It's not.
The whole narrative of the Cleveland Browns is that quarterbacks don't work. That's the whole narrative about the Browns.
I just gave the team that made the playoffs last year with 5 different quarterbacks. Quarterbacks don't work.
Correct. Look at the 40 names on the back of a
Kevin
jersey.
Stefanski finds you're bringing up the
You're
whole
the
history.
only person that ignores
You're
that
not
stuff.
being no, because you're not being drafted to the history of the Browns. You're being drafted to Kevin Stefanski.
You got to wear
and
that
the
orange
Cleveland
helmet, and that
Browns.
would stink for your career.
Orange helmets. I mean, yes, apparently must be horrible.
Well, I got a good stripe on it. Look at that sucker.
Give me my
pretty.
helmet. Give it. I'm taking it back.
You
Give me my
wearing
helmet.
it?
I'm throwing it out. I'm throwing it away. I'm throwing it away. Just throwing it away. Throwing away the Cincinnati Bengals helmet. I hope I didn't think about that, what was over there. I don't know what I hit, but my bad.
This was your segment.
This was your segment.
This
And
was
you
your
win.
segment.
You
We're backing
won.
up. We're blocking the quarterback to the worst quarterback franchise of all time, and Kenner's getting mad. about it.
I'm not. This isn't personal shots at all. I'm not.
These
I'm
aren't
not,
even takes.
I'm not.
These are
even-
just
I'm not even like
things that have
saying anything
happened.
bad. I'm
You
just,
don't, that annoying smirk you do. You don't do about any other team.
dude. This is how I speak. That's
Not. I talk to you every day.
I
You
t-
don't.
I talk with a
you,
smirk. That
you
is
hate
exactly
the
what I do.
Browns and you dislike me, so that's why you position all this because you're
What is
winning.
going on
you,
now?
you get this reaction out of me and you're winning, and I don't want you to win.
This was your segment. I didn't want to talk about it. This was your segment.
You didn't want to. What do you mean you didn't want to talk about it?
This was your segment.
you are the one that proposed this segment.
I didn't propose this
You
segment.
had that tweet ready. We're done. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody. It's 11:41. Elliot, what are we talking about for the last 19 minutes? I want to make sure we talk about exactly what you want to talk about for the final 19 minutes.
I don't know. I'm scared to talk now. I don't know
You
what I
can't
did.
smile.
Don't smile.
I don't know what
smile.
I did. I don't,
Don't smirk.
I'm pretty sure I smirk at every single thing I talk about. I literally think that's how I speak.
You don't, but it's okay.
You don't think I smirk at every little thing? I smirk at a lot.
What are we talking about? We have 19 minutes.
Are you okay?
I'm fan-freaking-tastic.
Are you okay?
I'm not.
Because I'm a little scared that you're not okay.
I'm a little scared too.
This is a very uncomfortable position to be in.
I'm not uncomfortable. I feel fine.
We have super chats to read if you want to read them.
I don't
Let's
want to
read 'em.
fucking read anything.
Read them.
This isn't for radio.
This isn't for radio? I'm pretty sure this is only segment 5. Or this was
No, we're segment 6. We're good.
Are you reading the chats or am I?
Read the super chats. What do we got?
I don't want to read them.
All right, I'll read them. I got to pull it up. I got to pull them up. We got a lot of money during that segment. It was a good one.
Maybe it'll be enough to convince Shador to let, or to Dion to let Shador come to Cleveland.
I don't think that's a money thing. I don't think that's a money thing. I can't find them.
You want me to do
I
it?
can only see the most recent one. Ah, there they are. Alex says, for Kinner's anger management class, we got $5 for that. Mr. Mo, $5. Kinner drops F-bomb on radio defending the Browns, but has the audacity to call us Bengal bros. You are an absolute joke. And then Alex, with the 3-year anniversary.
Hold on. What did that fucking Bengal bro just say? What did he say?
He said Kinner drops F-bombs on radio defending the Browns and has the audacity to call us Bengal bros. You are an absolute joke.
I probably am a joke to most. I am going to say the F-bomb, and you are 1,000,000% a Bengal bro. That's fine. All could be true.
And then Alex coming back for more. Second $5 super chat. 2 F-bombs. Gotta up the anger management fund.
Well, I appreciate those who are helping with the anger management fund.
That's just
that.
Alex. That's just $15 from Alex
Just-
for anger management. He's really looking out for you.
Where do I go to look for anger management? I'll have to look it up.
As somebody who's been a fan of objectively terrible sports franchises for my entire life, I think I've been pretty open about it. Like I'm not like if somebody comes at me and says the Bengals organization isn't a top 25 organization in sports, I'm going to agree with it. I'm not going to sit here and defend the Bengals. I'm not going to defend the Cincinnati Reds. If anybody came at me and said the Reds have been arguably the
If someone
worst.
said the Reds were the worst sports organization, I would not argue.
They've been the worst. I'm a fan of the team that's been objectively the worst sports organization in the last 30 years. I don't take it personally. It's just what it is. That's just my opinion. If you're going to defend the Browns like you just did, that's fine.
Where was I defending the Browns, though?
You were defending Kinner. Come on.
Elliot, come on. I
don't know
literally
You said that
said
they're
the
not
Browns.
the worst spot possible for a quarterback when they've had 40 quarterbacks in the
I
last
said Kevin
20 years.
Stefanski.
Yeah, it's still Browns.
And where I'm not agreeing with you guys at all is you're using the entire Browns history when you're not being drafted to the whole Browns history. Like the whole, I mean, what is that? What are we doing here? The Bengals are doing things they've never done before at this level, and that wasn't a part of their history before. But they get the quarterback right, and now look, they're writing new history.
Again, you keep going back to that. Bengals had quarterback success.
Playoff
before Joe
success, playoff success, 30-plus years or whatever. We're just ignoring that narrative that existed before Burrow got there. We're ignoring the fact that everyone just
even
mocked
those
their
30
ability.
years before Burrow got there, the Bengals were nowhere near where the Browns are.
I mean, for being a Buckeye fan, you would make fun of Michigan fans who use the ancient history and the Notre Dame fans that we've done, and now you're doing the ancient history thing too.
When
like
the history is
it's about right
the entire history of your organization. Yeah.
That has nothing to do. The ownership, all
The
that. All
Browns
that's
have never
different
been a
with
bigger
Cleveland.
laughingstock than they are now, and they went 0-16.
I get why you need that to be true. Cleveland, I'm not saying they're a great organization. They are not.
They're distantly the worst organization in the NFL.
Distantly?
Okay, maybe Jets. We'll put them 2 distantly below the other 30.
Distantly?
Yeah. They've never won their division.
They've made the playoffs. They've won in the playoffs recently. Like, they've turning that corner with Kevin Stefanski. That's what I mean.
But if you're going to look at where
so
they rank
if the Browns win the
organizationally in
Super Bowl
league,
next year, we still say you're a joke of an organization because for your whole history,
if the Browns
you've
win
been
a
bad.
Super Bowl, that would change things. That would require them to
Why?
win multiple playoff games, which they haven't done, I believe, ever.
So now we have to win multiple playoff games. You were a great organization
baby
just
steps.
5 years ago
I said we're better than the Browns.
because of what you did in the 80s.
No, because of what we did with Dalton and then with Boomer and then with Ken
Dalton
Anderson.
wasn't
Go all the way back.
Dalton wasn't good. Remember, that's why you guys wanted Marvin Lewis gone because winning
made
wasn't good
7,
enough.
8
Making the
playoffs in a row?
playoffs wasn't good enough. But you kept saying that wasn't good enough. That's why you wanted to get rid of Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton and everybody. That wasn't good enough.
Right, it's not. We were spinning our tires, and that's still better than Cleveland. So if
Okay.
that wasn't good enough, then what is Cleveland?
Cleveland right now under Kevin Stefanski is way better than what they've been throughout the history of Cleveland before. That's the point.
Low bar.
You're not being drafted, all right, to the 1992 Cleveland Browns. It's 2025.
I think organizational history matters, especially with
No,
quarterbacks.
in fact, it's not even an opinion. I know when draft night, when the little marquee is up there, it'll say 2025 NFL Draft.
And I'm sure when the Browns go on the clock, they'll have a ticker that says 40 starting quarterbacks in the last however many years.
That's great. Just
And that
like,
matters.
Yep, and just like everyone would bring up the 30-plus year NFL playoff drought.
Which
Until you
mattered.
got Joe Burrow, and now
Which
that was
mattered.
you got to get the quarterback right, and that's what Cleveland's trying to do.
Let me throw my hat in the ring here because it's been a lot of Kinner and Jacob, and I don't want any more hate on that side of the room. I'll take some of the heat. The Browns' current roster situation Defensively, great. Offensively, it's not good. We know that. They've been really bad this season. Kevin Stefanski, I just looked it up, has a 40-44 record. He had 2 winning seasons. Okay, I'll give you that. But most recent thing, what have you done for me lately? You're picking second. And there's a reason why you're picking second in the league. I mean, the Browns themselves had a quarterback, and they didn't believe in said quarterback, and now he made it to a playoff, didn't win the game. But Baker Mayfield.
But I don't think anyone believed in Baker Mayfield. Everyone was making.
But
when it was
that,
leading,
that was a
when
decision your organization made.
When
to
it was
get rid
trending
of him.
towards the Browns having to pay Baker Mayfield, everyone was making fun of me and all Browns fans, saying, "Oh, good luck when the Browns have to pay Baker Mayfield $35 to $40 million." That narrative existed. People forget that narrative existed, that they created, and now all of a sudden want to act like you let that guy go. Weren't you guys the same ones that were going to make fun of the Browns for paying Baker Mayfield to stay?
That's the Browns' decision ultimately to
and by the way, moving on from Baker at the time to go get a guy that a handful of teams in the league were lining up to try and get. I don't get how that's crazy.
Speaking of quarterbacks that you have Deshaun Watson sitting behind whoever you draft, and you have to deal with that nonsense. Like, that's not something that I would want to walk into. You're having to have that guy breathe down your neck and all the nonsense that comes with it. No. I mean, I just think that right now it's not a great situation already. It's a really bad situation. And you're looking at having to reconstruct the entire offense. I don't know. Like, I just disagree with the idea that it's good. It's not good. It's probably one of the worst situations to walk into right now. I don't know if it's the worst, because I think there's other teams that have other salary cap issues as well. But the Browns are one of the worst situations to walk into right now as a quarterback.
We'll agree to disagree. I don't think it's the worst. I don't think it's the worst. Literally, media for the last 2 years has said the Browns are a quarterback away. And you have a chance to be that quarterback to come in and be that quarterback away, and you don't want to do it. You'd rather go to the Giants and everyone else who is no good right now. But, hey, because they won a Super Bowl 10-plus years ago, that's the better situation to go to now. That doesn't make any sense. To me, it just doesn't.
How long has ownership had the Browns for?
Since what? Was it 13 or 14 is when the Haslams jumped in? Was it 14?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the record is for the Haslam career, but
when they take over, they stripped it down, so you're going to have those losing seasons, obviously. I mean, there's plenty of losing seasons, but you lose on purpose early on to strip it down. When they started turning it around and spending the money, that's when you started getting started winning games. That's when you got the Baker Mayfield run. You made the playoffs twice. Not the best ownership group in football, but I'll take cash-rich owners any day to spend your way out of it. But we done? Can we be done?
Yeah, it works.
Else?
Okay. I don't know. I'm scared now. I don't know.
You don't have to be afraid.
I truly didn't mean anything personal. I mean, I don't know.
I never said you didn't mean anything personal.
Well, I mean, coming at the smirk was a little wild, but that's okay. We all got to make fun of the smirk sometimes. I just think that if you looked at the Browns right now, and my whole opinion is they were the current organization, not the one 25 years ago, not the one 55 years ago. The current organization is the one that made the worst move in the history of professional sports. And that's a franchise I wouldn't want to be associated with, on top of the fact that if you look over the last 25 years, nobody's been able to develop a quarterback. They've used, if you want to use just Stefanski, who, by the way, I have defended. I like Kevin Stefanski. But if you look at just the past several years, they've used quite a bit of quarterbacks. A lot of quarterbacks. And not particularly any good ones. That's my argument, and that's all I'll end it. I am a fan of the Reds, who are the worst professional sports organization in the last 30 years. The last 30. The Bengals, probably a bottom 15 organization in football. I'm not going to sit here and defend my teams. I'm just saying it's just how it is. The segment it asked me, is this going to be one of those teams? Those were your words. Is this going to be one of those teams? In my opinion, it's if there was ever a team that was going to be one of those teams, it's the team that's never had a good quarterback.
I do have a question, because it feels like you're very no, that is not the worst situation to go into. What do you think the worst situations are around the league? Because then I think we can at least defend the other teams or stack them up against the Browns.
That's my whole premise, though, about the NFL. I don't think there is an impossible situation to go into anywhere. We constantly see teams go from worst to first all the time. I don't think there's an impossible situation to go to in the NFL. We constantly see it. Washington was god-awful, and they're in the playoffs with a playoff win. and they have a chance to get to the NFC Championship game this weekend. Like the Texans have been god-awful multiple times, and they've rebuilt multiple times. You can get out of that. You can get out of any of this. I mean, that's the whole beauty
Well,
of
that
the
might be
NFL.
true.
Yeah,
there
that-
still
that
has
wasn't-
to be a worst spot. Like, even if they're all going to work and all rebuild, like, of the landing spots, one has to be, like, the
And
worst.
you can even say that the Browns could easily turn things around too, but that wasn't the question. It
Right.
was why would he decide not to go to the Browns? It's because it's one of the worst destinations.
I think everyone last year was saying the Patriots was the worst destination
situation,
for a
yeah.
quarterback, and now they've obviously turned it around to being talked about quite differently. So, like, being the worst
Because they got
situation
the quarterback.
it doesn't mean that you're not going to turn it around. We're asking you who the worst situation in this draft is if it's not Cleveland.
Oh, it's not. I don't think Cleveland's the worst situation in this draft at all.
So who is?
I think when you look, I think the Giants are in a bad spot. The Jets
I
are
think
in a
the Giants are
horrendous
a
spot.
great landing spot for a quarterback. You have a number one dominant wide receiver in Malik Neighbors.
And you have two very good wide receivers in Cleveland. You have one of the best defensive players in the NFL. You have a very good defense in Cleveland. Like, Cleveland checks off way more boxes than a lot of these teams picking in the top 10 right now.
Of the top five, and I mean, only two of the top five teams aren't going to take a quarterback in New England and Jacksonville. I think Tennessee and the Giants are better than Cleveland in terms of landing spot.
Tennessee based on what? What do they have? They have no defense, no offense. What do they have that Cleveland doesn't?
Number one pick, cap. Don't have
They have
Deshaun
one
Watson
more
on the
pick
roster. Haven't
ahead.
played 40 quarterbacks.
Deshaun
in the last
Watson. I
20
mean,
years.
they also have a cash-rich owner that manipulates money. They've been one of the highest-spending teams in football for years. When they were told they wouldn't be able to spend a dime after paying Deshaun.
Right. In these next 2 years, you can't push it anymore.
They can and they will. They'll push other people's contracts over, and that's how they do it. That's how the Eagles do it. That's how all these other teams do it. Those other teams win,
Were the two
but
very
there will
good
be
receivers
money
in
to
Cleveland,
continue.
Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman?
What's that?
Was it Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman? Are the two very good receivers in Cleveland?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Doesn't work for me.
The other thing, like you said, but the cap is a thing that you can look at physically and say the Giants and Titans have over 40+ million to work with extra moves to make, of course. The Browns currently are under by 30. So they have to
$70 million difference.
So they have
Do you
to
remember
make
like
moves
last
that
year
can-
at this time they were minus 55 and they
Yeah,
spent more.
yeah,
they spent
but-
the
I-
second.
They spent the second most money than anyone else.
Right, but what we're saying is they have to make moves that either shift the money around and push back the future, which is not a good thing.
That's
'cause
what
then
teams do,
that
though.
quarterback has to deal with that future problem, or they have to make the team worse to get back to the cap. So I just feel like that is not a good situation. There's one team that I look at that I think you would look at the current roster might be worse, or like a destination where I don't think I would be successful in, and that's the Jags. The Jags, to me,
But they're not taking a quarterback.
right? But like, if they were to say that Trevor Lawrence, like whoever the next coach is, and doesn't believe in Trevor Lawrence, possibly like that's a situation.
I think that would stop you from getting that job.
That's fair. That's fair. And the other team I'm looking at right now is the Saints. They're $50 million under the cap, and I don't know what their ownership is like, but that's hard to come back from. And that team's already pretty bad. So, and they're like 5-12. So those are the two teams that I look at right now that I could make an argument for that aren't good destinations to go to.
I think the
Well,
Jets could be
the
worse.
Jets, yeah.
Pending the Garrett Wilson trade. Devontae Adams already said he's not coming back, basically. I think the Jets could definitely be considered worse.
I certainly would never want to go to the Jets. That's
I would also block the Jets, to be fair, with the original question. I would also block going to the Jets.
This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Tomorrow, talk Browns for 3 hours. We're going to add an hour to the show.
I'm smoking legal marijuana on tomorrow's show. Come tune in for that.
Until tomorrow, it's been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton.